Why bees make honey, and why it's one of the strangest foods on Earth. Understanding honey means understanding the extraordinary process bees use to create it. It begins when a worker bee visits a flower and drinks its nectar, a sugary liquid produced by the plant to attract pollinators. The nectar is stored in a special organ called the honey stomach, or crop, which is separate from the bee's regular digestive stomach. As the bee flies back to the hive, enzymes in her body, particularly one called invertase, begin breaking down the complex sugars in the nectar into simpler sugars, primarily glucose and fructose. Once back at the hive, the bee passes the partially processed nectar to another worker bee through a process called trophallaxis, essentially a mouth-to-mouth transfer. This exchange happens repeatedly, further breaking down the sugars and reducing the nectar's water content. The nectar is then deposited into the hexagonal wax cells of the honeycomb. At this stage, it's still quite watery, with a moisture content that could allow fermentation and spoilage. To fix this, worker bees fan their wings rapidly over the open cells, generating airflow that evaporates much of the remaining water. Once the moisture content drops to around 17 to 18%, the honey is ripe and stable, and the bees cap the cell with a thin layer of wax to seal it for storage. This entire process, repeated across thousands of flowers and millions of trips, is what allows a single hive to produce anywhere from 30 to 100 pounds of surplus honey in a good season, far more than the colony needs to survive winter, which is why beekeepers can harvest the excess without harming the hive. The many types of honey. Not all honey tastes or looks the same, and the variation comes almost entirely from the flowers the bees visited. This is called monofloral or polyfloral honey, depending on whether the bees primarily foraged one type of flower or many. Clover honey is one of the most common varieties in North America and Europe, known for its light color and mild, sweet flavor. Manuka honey, produced from the manuka bush, native to New Zealand and parts of Australia, has become famous for its distinctive antibacterial compounds and is often sold at a premium price with a rating system indicating its potency. Buckwheat honey is dark, robust, and almost molasses-like in flavor, and it tends to be richer in antioxidants than lighter varieties. Acacia honey is prized for its very light color, delicate floral flavor, and slower crystallization, making it a favorite for drizzling over desserts. Orange blossom honey carries a light citrus aroma and is popular in the Mediterranean and southern United States. Wildflower honey is a polyfloral variety made from whatever blooms happen to be available in a given region and season, meaning its flavor can vary considerably from batch to batch and place to place. Beyond floral source, honey also comes in different textures and processing levels. Raw honey is minimally filtered and unheated, retaining more pollen, enzymes, and fine particles of wax. Pasteurized honey is heated to extend shelf stability and improve clarity, though this process can reduce some of the beneficial enzymes. Creamed or whipped honey is honey that has been controlled to crystallize into a smooth, spreadable texture rather than a runny liquid. What's actually inside? Honey. A nutritional breakdown. Honey is first and foremost a concentrated sugar source. On average, a tablespoon of honey, about 21 grams, contains roughly 60 to 65 calories, composed almost entirely of carbohydrates, primarily fructose and glucose, with trace amounts of sucrose and maltose. Despite its reputation as a health food, honey is not a significant source of vitamins or minerals in the quantities most people consume it. It does contain small amounts of B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, iron, potassium, and zinc. But these are present in such small amounts that honey should not be relied upon as a meaningful source of micronutrients. Where honey does stand out nutritionally is in its antioxidant content. Darker honeys, in particular, contain plant compounds called flavonoids and phenolic acids, which have been studied for their role in neutralizing free radicals in the body. Generally speaking, the darker the honey, the higher its antioxidant concentration tends to be. Raw, unfiltered honey also contains trace enzymes, including the same invertase and glucose oxidase used during its production, along with small amounts of pollen. Some of these enzymes and compounds can be diminished by heat, which is one reason raw honey advocates prefer unpasteurized varieties.